Today, I would like to present you the management of the goods of the Jewish immigrants in transit through the free port of Trieste during the Second World War, in the context of the distribution of the Jewish immigrant shipment in a transnational perspective. I show you a few analyses that I made, elaborating the data conserved in the Italian documentation for explaining you the processes that led to the sale of part of these goods between 1940 and 1943 in Trieste, their sales on block according to the provision issued by the martial law in 1938, the Italian martial law. The seizure and the blocking anticipated the confiscation of all these goods by the Supreme Commissioner of the Operation Zone of Adriatic Littoral, and then later the restitution processes in the afterwar by the American government in Trieste. I also introduce you the research that I'm conducting right now on the Genova and, surprise me, Naples ports, to stress out how much is extended the distribution of the Jewish immigrant shipment in European ports and how much is complex the dispossession processes on their movable items. During my research on the fate of the cultural objects Jewish owned in the Italian Northeast, especially on Trieste and its provinces, I came across many times to the free port of Trieste. I came across it for two reasons. Trieste, for its geographical position, played a crucial role in the exodus of the Jewish people who were fleeing the persecution policies adopted in many European Eastern countries at the beginning of the 20th century and later on in Austria and in Germany. Different committees were established in Trieste to assist the Jewish immigrant from the beginning of the 20s. And this Jewish committee worked with great difficulty also for all the duration of the Second World War. For his important role, Trieste was named the gateway to Zion, the same name that then was given to Genoa port for the Jewish immigrant that used that port in the afterwar. The second reason is because 4 warehouses of the free port of Trieste, here, for example, is warehouses number 2, were used by the Supreme Commissioner of the Operation Zone of Adriatic Littoral to store the confiscated items from the Jewish house in Trieste and its provinces. From these warehouses, the items were sold in Trieste in a methodology that is not so much clear right now, and other part of these goods confiscated in Trieste was then shipped out the country. But the importance of Trieste does not end on this aspect. Before the Italy entry into the war in June 1940, thousands of Jewish consignment were shipped to Trieste from Austria, Germany, and Eastern country. These goods considered enemy subject property according to the Italian martial law issued in 1938 and its implementing law in 1940 and 1941 were then seized. Here you have how it was the port at the end of the 30s. You have in these two little maps. What is interesting that in Trieste, there was the Azienda dei Magazzini Generali of Trieste. It was a sort of public-private institution that were created in Trieste, but also in many other cities, that has that was in charge for the management of the infrastructure, the movimentation of the goods inside and outside the port, import and export, and the development of the infrastructure on the everything of the Italian state. The hangar and the warehouses in the free port of Trieste, like for example in Naples, many of them were under the Magazzini Generali management, and the Magazzini Generali rented part of these warehouses to the private forwarding agency. In these cases, for example, from the map, I would like to show you one. You have warehouses number 23, that it was used, for example, to store the lift fan of the Jewish immigrants. And going back to the map. 23 is in green there on the left. I put in the green all the warehouses that were managed directly by Magazzini Generali. In yellow, you have instead the warehouses that were managed directly by the forwarding agencies. This is important because these type of things, of goods conserving in these warehouses, were managed by the Italian government in a different way. And then in red, instead, you have the warehouses that were used to store the goods confiscated in Trieste and its provinces. So you have, for what concern Magazzini Generali, warehouses number 23, 27, 28, 30 for concerning the old port, and then you have warehouses number 56 and 69. Instead, the private warehouses were number 4, Tascabile, 7, 10, 18. This is an example of a warehouse managed by Magazzini Generali. This is a recent photo. The old port of Trieste, it's like in a limbo in the time. It's not restored, just few buildings are restored. Now there is a big Chinese project to restore the port. And this is another warehouses, number 40. As you see, the dimension of the warehouses changed completely. They are different. In the first one, it was a warehouses that were used for big Häfen. So we are talking about 5 or 6 square meters. Instead, in these cases, were used for crates, so 2 for 3 square meters. So different type of consignment. After Italy entered into the war, so we are in June 1940, the consignment of the Jewish emigrants remained in the port of Trieste to cover the expensive, the insurance, the rent to the Magazzini Generali, the storage fees, whatever. The 3 forwarding agencies, companies, Francesco Reiter, Intercontinentale, and Marovic, requested authorization to the court of Trieste to sell part of the goods containing in particular Häfen and crates to cover this expensive. Here you have an elaboration of the public action that were performed between December 1940 and May 1943. The first requests to the court were submitted in November 1940. And the court of Trieste took decision basing the provision of the 1882 Commercial Code, and then using the Italian Civic Code that was inactive in 1942. So I'm telling you about this law because it changed the things, if we were authorized or not. It's also according to which code were applied. 56 appeals were submitted to the court, and 48 were the public action that were performed. In some cases, you have for the same owner of the same Häfen is better because not all the time they took all the consignment of the owner, but just a part. We have more than one public action. In one case, it's 3 public action. In the others, 2 public action. The aim was to reach the debt that has to be covered to the shipping company. That it was the clear rule of the judge. So this is why. So it depends the value of the things, how many buyers were present, and what was about the sale gain. The shipments and the owner of these action were most of them from Vienna. Then we have a smaller number from Germany, especially from Hamburg, Berlin, and then Würzburg, and one case from Bremen, one owner from Bremen, and other from Eastern country. After that, the court authorization was accorded. An expert was appointed by the judge to do a sort of estimation of the goods. And in some cases, a representative of a Jewish organization present in Trieste were allowed to be part of this selection. So a sort of checking that everything was legally performed, let's say. The purpose it's clear, is to put on sale all the object whose value was equivalent to the cost that has to be covered and was current by the forwarding companies. What about the goods that were sold? Most of them, there were furniture. We have the description I will show you now in the next slide. It's very without details. So we have, for example, an interior bedroom furniture, a living room. Then we have porcelain set, a lot of daily life objects like tablecloths, table set, linen houses, without the description of what's interesting for us, if it's quality, value, and if it was artistic object. In my elaboration, I put also the artistic object and carpets divided, and it's my personal interpretation of the data, okay? Because we have no information about what is Chinese vase, could be a souvenir from China, who can be really an important item. We don't know exactly. Sometimes we have the word valuable, antique, precious, old, so we can speculate about these things. And then another things, we can cross the value that was given by the expert. Sometimes we have carpets with under the label carpets, but maybe they are tapestry with the value really, really high. So it's not just a rag put on there on the floor as another, it's for sure another thing. In the artistic object, there are also the books. And so means not one books. We have, like he say, crates full of books, hundreds of books. And we have also, you can see also musical instrument. I find it really interesting. So we have violins, a lot of violins, high pianos, for example, in more than one case. Here you have an example, for example, of how was the description. The sale was really was reported, because then this report has to be transmitted to the court of Trieste. So you have, I can translate for you, for example, we have a tea set composed of 27 pieces of porcelain. It was estimated 16 Italian lire. It was sold to Atena Mario, it was the buyer, for 110 lire. We can also work on these data to find the estimation prices. If we find some information about the estimation prices, if it was let's say, balance with the market value, and so on and so forth. I put you this example because this was one of the 6 Liffen opened by Fritz Oberlander. He came from Vienna. He was from Vienna. He fled to United Kingdom at the beginning of the 1938. The beginning, sorry, in September 1938. All these Liffen and crates were shipped to Trieste, entered in the port of Trieste, were recorded the entrance of his consignment the 13th September 1938. Francesco Reite was the shipping company in charge of the management of his goods. He was able to have correspondences with him since the beginning of 1940, and we know that at the beginning of 1940 he fled to United States, to New York, so then he was not able to have more correspondences. And so after, so we have September 1938, and then we arrive in April 1942, so more than 3 years. All this stuff were stored in the free port of Trieste. And then the shipping company, the Francesco Reiter firm, present the request to the court of Trieste to sell part of these goods in February 1942, and in April there was the public sale. 8 and 9 April 1942. It's interesting because then you can find on the right of the slide a letter that he wrote in 1949 from New York City. And because he traveled then after the war to Trieste to understand what's happened to his goods, to his stuff, and he was able then to meet some employees of Francesco Reiter company, and they gave to him the list of the buyer and the information about the buyer. And then he was in contact with the IMG administration in Trieste. And it's pretty, I don't know if it's funny is not the right word, but one of the buyer was, as you can read it, was in, decided that he could sell to him back ice cream set. And he didn't accept it, and especially in the full documentation, he requests many times, but do you have information about my Chinese vases and my carpets? So we can think that that was the valuable things that he had in his stuff, not for surely ice cream set. Here we have a list in his letter. There are some names of the buyers. There are not all the buyers that were involved in his public action. There are some missing, 3 names. And I did an analysis also about the buyers. I'm not showing you the names for the Italian privacy law, but I would like to explain you a little bit about this graph. This is every line, every vertical line is a buyer. As you can see, there was a sort of, there was quite always the same buyer, both stuff there in the public action. And in yellow, you have the buyers of the goods of Mr. Oberlander. And what about these buyers? Most of them, they were employees of shipping companies. Some of them, they were owner of smaller commercial shop in Trieste. So all of them, they were dealing with import, export, and little selling. For sure, we know we have reports of the police, and they noticed that they gain a lot of money during the war because they bought these things for nothing, and then they resold it in the city of Trieste for a double or triple price. And we can see, we can absolutely confirm that what it was an hypothesis of the police of Trieste. And then this analysis that the police made, it was to demonstrate to the prefecture of Trieste that it was also a sort of speculation in this type of public action. For this reason, it was decided to stop this public action. While I was working on this conference, then I found also that in the port of Naples happened the same things in 1942. Again, Magazzini Generali of Naples, in this case, request to the court of Trieste, of the court of Naples, the possibility to sold part of the goods containing leffen of Jewish immigrants from Germany to China. To sold it, and everything was sold. I have not the list yet, but I can, for the report, for the documentation that I find, it seems to be that everything was sold. And Mr. Kantorovsky from Shanghai, he requested in the half after the war, he requested information about this leffen. And he discovered that everything was sold in Naples. And these things of Mr. Kantorowski, but also other leffen, were shipped from Hamburg to Naples. These, let's say, sporadic sales that were authorized by the court of Trieste, first of all, did not cover all the expenses that were occurrence by the shipping companies. And second one, it was not the best answer to manage this quantity of objects and goods stored in the port of Trieste. So the Italian Minister of Exchange and Currencies, the Minister of Finance, Communication and Interiors debate for, let's say, years, because they start to debate in late 1941. So we are in 1943 right now. So they debate for a long to try to find the best solution. So at the end, only in 11 May 1943, the prefect of Trieste, so means the Minister of the Interiors, because the prefecture is the local offices of the Minister of the Interiors in Italy, Tullio Tamburini, issued the seizure decree on a part of these goods, only on part of this, not all the things that were stolen in the free port of Trieste, but the things that were stolen in the Magazzini Generali warehouses, the one that I show you in green, not in yellow. So, and my Austrian colleague will then explain you better and in details what's happened to all that consignment seizure. The other part that were not seizure, the one that I show you, the warehouse in the yellow, was just, let's say, remain in the port in a sort of status of standby. There was under the provision of the war law, but in the same time, they were not seizure following that provision. It's important to say and to stress out these things, because in all the goods of the Jewish emigrant that were stored in the port of Trieste, but also in Naples and in Genoa, were not applied in Italy, the anti-racial legislation, but the martial law. So means that the restitution process at the end of the war was completely different. And this is, again, it's more important about these items, because these items were not seized by the martial law, was just standby. So the processes of restitution and the claims processes was really complicated, because the Italian government and first the American government in Trieste had some difficulty to understand exactly what to apply for the restitution of these items, or what to do with the claims, let's say. This is one of the page of the list of all the items that remain in standby in the port of Trieste, and they were listed, and a trustee was appointed on 19 May 1943. Sometimes you can find the same name in this list and in the list also of the goods that were seized, but not all the time, just a part of them, because it depends where the goods, leaf-and or crates, were stored in the port of Trieste. So here we are talking about crates, so 2 for 3 square meter. In totally, we have 7,900 crates for 1,914 owners. I elaborate some data. In this list, you have many information. You have a sort of inventory number that it's linked to the shipping company. So the personal inventory number of the shipping company that manages that crates. Then you have the number of crates, the second list, second column, sorry. And then you have the weight of the crates. You have the name of the owner, then from where to where. The consignment was from where was shipped and where has to be shipped. Sometimes you can see, you find also the name Trieste or Italy or Germany or again Vienna, for example. This was because the final destination was not yet declared to the shipping company. Or because sometimes we have sometimes France, for example. In that case, it's across some data, and it's because that owner were interned in deportation camps in Italy, internment camps in Italy or in France, for example, or in Eastern countries. So this is why it was indicated that country. Then you have the expenses, and then you have the name of the forwarding agents that ship the crates, to Trieste. So you have a lot of data, and you can work with that data. What I'm showing here is just a flow diagram of the from to where. So about the movements of these crates. You can see mostly they were from Austria, then you have Germany, then you have Eastern country, and then some, a smaller part not declared, but as you can see, a big part of not declared was in the final destination. You can follow the flow and you can see that Palestine and United States was the two first final destinations that were declared. But decide not to put the name of all this country, just to show you how much was fragmentary and how much these, let's say, shipping goods really cover quite all around the world. What about Germany? So let's see, extrapolate the data only about Germany. In the most of the case, the crates came from Berlin with a final destination Palestine and China. A lot of them with a final destination not yet declared. Not yet declared is dependent when stopped the correspondences between the owner and the shipping company, okay? And then you have Hamburg, for example, final destination Palestine, United States, and then Frankfurt to Palestine. And you have also some cases from Bremen. Here, the data is about Bremen. And again, there are always the same final destination. So Palestine, UK in this case, and also United States, China, and India. The same flow we can do also for the Caesar goods that was contained in the leaf van. In that cases, there are a sort of we can say, they are very similar than the result. In that one, there is just one case about Bremen, and there are more shipping to Palestine. What is interesting is that while I was working on the case of Trieste, I started to wondering what's happened about all the goods that were then stored in the other Italian ports. It's better. I know how much was important the other port in Italy during the fascist regime, especially the port of Genova. Port of Genova received, you have a photo there of Mussolini that is checking the project of the expansion of the port of Genova. Port of Genova was absolutely important, fundamental for the fascism economy system, because that was all the commerce to overseas, so United States, and was really important. So this is why they started to the port of Genova, and in that case is the Consorzio Autorità Portuale of Genova, so the authority in charge of the port of Genova, to receive money to develop the port. So we can say more than a half of the port of Genova was built during the better, develop and rebuilt and renovated during the fascist regime. And the port of Genova was that name, the gateway to Zion in the afterward for the Jewish immigrants that used that port to go to Palestine. In Genova happened then, it was applied always the Italian martial law of 1940. So the provision of the martial law and in the items, the leaf van, the crates, and the goods of the Jewish immigrants, but in general, what was considered enemy subject property was Caesar in favor of the Italian state. This is just one prefecture order about the stuff managed by the Lloyd Triestino branch in Genoa. So we have a specular situation of Trieste. The big difference with Genoa, that Genoa was heavy bombed from 1940 to 1944. Also Trieste was bombed. We know that many leaf van, many storages were destroyed or partially destroyed also in Trieste, but Genova suffered a lot about this bombing. On the left, you have a photo of France attack, the French attack in 1940. And so about Genova, we have reports of leaf van, of storages that were destroyed. It's better, we have the report of storages destroyed and all the contents in without any specification if they were able to save something or not. But we know perfectly that Genova was used, documentation told us that Genova was used like one of the main ports to ship the Jewish immigrants' property from Europe to overseas destination. I like a lot this photo because show you how was Genova in connection with the other parts of the country. During always the fascist regime, there was developed all the railway connection between the port of Genova, and also was developed what is the main road that also today put in connection Genova with the north of the country. Between Genova and Milan, there is a small city, a small town. His name is Arquata Scrivia. It's around 50 kilometers from Genova. And in Arquata Scrivia, it's a place that we're used to store it, lift van and crates of the ports of Genova. So when you have a long-term storages, the crates were moved from Genova, from the port itself, to other places into other places, like in this case to Arquata Scrivia, because it's a long-term storage. You don't need to have all this stuff in the port. It's a logistic matter. And in the Arquata Scrivia, it was instituted Magazzini Generali di Arquata Scrivia. So again, these public and private institutions to manage all the storages there. From these notes, we know that in late December 1944, the crates that were stored in Arquata Scrivia, and most of them, if not quite the totality of them, were from Jewish emigrants, started to be removed by the German forces and shipped out from the country. We are talking about 400 crates. And this is a note between the port of Genova, and then we have other documents together with this one. So the port of Genova, it's a correspondence between the port of Genova, the prefecture of Arquata Scrivia, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Ministry of Interiors. And it's interesting because here we have, so it was declared around 400 boxes, 400 crates. There was from the owner of these, there was, 98 owners. I'm trying to translate what I'm speaking. 98 owners, Jewish, seems to be Jewish, so Jewish immigrants, and of these 98 owners, 33 were coming from the Genova port, so were moved from the port of Genova to Arquata Scrivia, but and the final destination was United States. But the other 65 were coming from another Italian port, maybe Naples. So these goods were moved also within the country. And the most of them, 28 of these owners were German, has German citizens. This is what is written: one from Hungary, one Swiss, one German, one English, and one from Holland, and one without nationality at that time. And for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it was important that it stopped it, that things of exportation were absolutely stopped to don't lost the value of the goods of the Jewish immigrants. But here we are in February 1945, and it seems to be that this exportation was carried on. I would like to finish just telling you my last, let's say, really last consideration. I think that we are dealing with lists, with names, with really an amount of data that it's logistic data that is completely, that it's that's pretty complex to be read and to be understood. So I think the importance, at least for the Italian case, but also for the other cases I showed today, a sort of integration, a sort of communication between these data. Otherwise, this is not a field that's stopping the border of a country, because people, it's the movement of people, of immigrants, and the movement of their goods. So it's important to link researches and to link also information and data that we can find in different archives. Thank you.